Being a teenager can sometimes be tough. You have to listen to the rules of your parents and teachers, and you don't always get what you want. More often than not though, aside from all that, your teenage years are some of the best years of a young person's life. Not only is it exciting going on your first dates, there are weekend football games, school proms, and hanging out with friends. There's also getting that first real job and having a chance to finally earn your own spending money. Sadly, this was all taken from 4 beautiful teenage girls, whose innocence and young lives were robbed from them during the winter, just barely 3 weeks shy of Christmas of 1991. The holidays would not be worth celebrating this particular year. Amy Ayres, who was only 13, Eliza Thomas, who was 17, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison, and her 15-year-old sister, Sarah, were murdered in what has since been dubbed the Austin Yogurt Shop Murders. The girls were all working the closing shift, and during the last half hour of their shift at around 9:30 p.m., a man was hanging around outside the shop, acting very strange. He even asked one of the other customers who had entered if he was a cop. While they were cleaning and getting ready to mop the floor, the man asked if he could come in to use the restroom. When he went back to the restroom, he also slipped over and fixed the back door to where it would not lock. After coming out, he noticed that the other customer that he spoke to was still there, so wanting to hang around a bit longer, he ordered a Sprite. The couple who left the shop at closing time reported to authorities that they saw the man hanging around with another man at the same table as they left. This would be the last time anyone ever saw any of the girls alive. Around midnight later that night, a Austin, Texas city police officer who was on patrol was driving by and noticed that the "I can't believe it's yogurt" shop was burning. After reporting it and calling for backup, he went to investigate, and what he found absolutely horrified him. Each of the young victims had been not only shot in the head, but sexually assaulted as well. Their bodies were all piled on top of each other. The victims had gunshots to the back of the head from 2 separate weapons. One was a .380 and the other being a .22. Sarah's hands had been bound behind her with a pair of panties, and she had also been gagged and raped. Eliza had been gagged and her hands were also tied behind her back. 3 of the girls were severely charred as well as being shot in the back of the head. 13-year-old Amy Ayres, however, was found in a different area of the shop. Although she wasn't completely charred like the others, she did have gunshots to her head, and was burned severely over 20 to 30% of her body. The poor child wasn't dead when she was placed on top of the other girls, and was set on fire. You can imagine how much pain and suffering this poor young lady went through as she tried to literally crawl to the door for help, only to succumb to her injuries as she was so close to getting help. As expected, the autopsy revealed an accelerant had been used to set them on fire, but more importantly, they had found traces of semen, which at that time, not much was known about DNA. According to the Austin Police Department, they have DNA from an unknown male as a result of one of the rapes. A Y chromosome match for the suspect has been found in a research database of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but it has declined to reveal the identity of the man in accordance with the law of anonymity for donors, because thousands of men could bear this fragment of DNA, which is unable to identify individuals. After questioning many possible suspects, there was a 15-year-old boy who was found at the nearby mall with a .22 pistol. The gun did not match the forensics of the pistol used, however. During questioning, he implicated himself and 3 of his teenage friends as the ones who committed the crimes. For some reason, the detectives who questioned him didn't buy their story, and they were set free. None of the boys were even 18 at the time of the crimes. Many years later, a new detective was assigned to the case, and after going over the files, he thought that the boys may have actually done it. They were all in their 20s now, and he decided to question them further. After bringing the young men in and questioning them all separately, when pressed, some of the boys had admitted that they were actually guilty, and admitted that all 4 of them had been active participants. The police bungled this part of the investigation by not taping the interrogations, or having any record of what was said, making the case even harder to prove. In 1999, the 4 were arrested and 2 were convicted, solely on their admission of guilt. The convictions were overturned when DNA came back, and didn't belong to any of the boys. At the time of the murders, a known serial killer, Kenneth Allen McDuff, was in the area. He had a history of multiple murders involving teenagers, but was soon ruled out. He was executed on November 17, 1998. In all, over 50 people had confessed to the murders, but all have been eliminated, and to this day, the identity of the killer or killers is still unknown. During the early stages of the investigation, one of the men who was a suspect was named Maurice Pierce. On December 23 of 2010, Austin police officer Frank Wilson and his partner, Bradley Smith, conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle driven by Pierce. Pierce, for whatever reason, jumped from his car and ran away, and the police officers pursued on foot. Pierce pulled out a knife and stabbed one of the officers in the neck, and was shot dead. The officer did, however, survive. Was it his guilt that caused him to flee, and he thought he was being arrested for it, or was he running for another reason? We'll probably never know at this point. In the years since the murders, suspects have been arrested and released, convictions have been made and overturned. We'll probably never know who stole the young lives of 4 innocent young girls, whose lives hadn't even really been able to start yet. It's a sad, senseless, despicable crime, and whoever did it, I hope karma came back on them 1,000-fold. If you or anyone you know has any idea who could have committed this senseless crime, please call the Austin Police Department and let them know. That's it for this episode. I hope you liked the story. As always, like, share and subscribe. We are growing each week, little by little, and we can't do it without you all, so thank you sincerely from us at graveyarddance.com.